Okay, this is Elmer Gray with the University of Georgia Entomology Department here in Athens. That was a great presentation, Melissa. You set the bar high. I'm going to talk about mosquitoes and what we can do to try to minimize them this summer. Next slide, please. We can't really talk about integrated pest management approach to mosquitoes without having a refresher of the mosquito life cycle. Mosquitoes will deposit their eggs on damp areas that will become flooded, above the water line in containers, or on the surface of standing water. So there's a group of floodwater mosquitoes that are particularly common in South Georgia and across the middle of the state. They will lay their eggs in the swamps along the rivers, on the high parts of the salt marsh, on the coast, and then when there's a flood tide or a hurricane creates a flood along the river, there'll be big broods of these mosquitoes emerge and create problems for these areas. Other mosquitoes will lay their eggs above the waterline in containers. These are our Asian tiger mosquito is the most common of these. I'm going to talk more about it later. This is our most common pest. They lay their eggs above the water surface. The next rain raises the water level and these eggs will hatch. There are a large group of mosquitoes that will lay their eggs on the surface of standing water. And all of these produce larvae and pupae that require temporary standing water and containers for their development. So temporary standing water is the key there, whether it's the swamp along the river bottom that's flooded right now, or the bottom corner of a field, roadside ditches, things like this that have water in them for periods and then it goes away. You don't have a fish population in these areas, and the mosquitoes can develop very quickly and take over the area. So this is important temporary standing water, and then the containers around our homes and yards. These are something that we can eliminate and do without. The adult mosquito does not typically fly far, although there are some exceptions. And this is important, that the salt marsh mosquitoes along the coast can fly and be blown great distances. Most other areas, mosquitoes, the common mosquitoes will travel a mile, and the container breeding mosquitoes that we develop and grow in our yards only fly a football field, 100 yards. So if you live in town, you have problems with mosquitoes, typically they're not coming from far away. The female mosquito bites to acquire a blood meal to stimulate egg production, and the males do not bite. Next slide, please. Current conditions. This is changing rapidly. Most of the state has been ahead on rainfall. Atlanta is still probably 12 inches ahead for the year, but this is changing quickly. And I know as we go south in the state, that surplus decreases and is dry along the Florida line. Standing water that's produced by the heavy rains will produce larval habitats, as I've said. The cool nights we've had have been kind of our saving grace. I reached out to my colleagues across the state, and there were some early season species that kind of flourished in the warm end of winter. And now we've had these cool nights, and so the summer, the warm weather species have kind of been held back a little bit in my mind, particularly here in the upstate where we've had some very cool nights. Many species are going to be becoming very common in the coming weeks, if they're not already in the south part of the state. So be prepared and pay attention to the rest of the information here. However, the populations are going to be very specific to the local conditions, and the declining rainfall is certainly going to help, particularly across the upstate here where we deal with a lot of containers. Different areas and different pests. The lower half of Georgia is very different from the rest of the state when we're talking about mosquitoes. And I talk about containers, and we want to deal with this so much. In South Georgia, that's not the only problem they deal with. The upstate, metro, and urban areas deal primarily with the daytime biting, container breeding, Aedes albopictus, the Asian tiger mosquito. This is an introduced pest, been in the state since the early 90s, and is the primary pest in urban areas across the eastern United States. South Georgia deals with more floodwater mosquitoes. It's more rural, there's less containers, it's less densely populated. The flatter, more swampland areas have a much greater potential for these large broods of floodwater mosquitoes. And a brood of mosquitoes is going to be when this area has eggs laid in it, it floods, then there's a flush of mosquitoes develop. All of these mosquito populations, we want to try to target using an IPM-based approach, integrated approach, and there's 5 kind of pillars to that approach. Education is the critical first step. We need to reach out and teach people about the mosquito life cycle. We've been doing this for a long time, but we cannot stop, and it's really important. Source reduction, making sure everybody knows that these containers and things around their yards can produce the mosquitoes that are causing their problems. Surveillance is the identification and searching for the larval habitats. And this is particularly important as a program develops in a city or town to target find the pest, identify it. As with any kind of pest control, we want to identify the pest, and then we can look more specifically for where these larval habitats are and target them more efficiently. And larvicides are a very efficient way to target these areas. There are many biological-based products and insect growth regulators that are safe for the environment, safe for non-targets, and don't have a mammalian toxicity. Adulticiding is an important part of the integrated approach. It's very effective when conducted properly, but it's a short-term relief. It only kills the mosquitoes that come in contact with the droplets of insecticide that are released. So very important and very effective, but there are other things that can be done. Important facts: the mosquitoes require the standing water for their larval and pupal stages to develop. I get questions, do they develop in wet grass? No, they don't. The larvae and pupae are in standing water, so that's really where we need to focus. Mosquitoes do not transmit the coronavirus, thankfully. However, they do transmit several other viruses: the West Nile virus that we commonly hear about, Eastern equine encephalitis, which is a particular problem from the fall line down in the more coastal lower part of the state, and the cross encephalitis. The fatality rate for Eastern equine encephalitis is 30%. So 30% of the people who are identified with this virus, the cases can be fatal, as opposed to a 0.6% for the coronavirus. So thankfully, there's not many cases of these mosquito-borne diseases, but they do have a tendency to target youths in particular, the Eastern equine and the cross particularly. If you live in town, the mosquitoes are often coming from your yard or your neighbor's yard. So it's great to be neighborly, work with your community, pay attention closely. I'm a entomologist myself, and I still find mosquitoes in my yard. So you cannot be too diligent as far as these habitats. And every rainfall changes. Something's been moved and holds water, children's toys, things like this. So you can't be too diligent. And as I say this in the last one, anything that can hold water will produce mosquitoes. The trays under our plants are one of the most common sites. So our message going forward is mosquitoes require standing water for their larval and pupal stages. Eliminate it. And this is kind of like washing hands for the coronavirus. We cannot be too diligent. Stopping smoking, dumping out standing water. There's three kind of pillars of public health I think we can go forward with. It's essential that the public knows where mosquitoes develop and how to reduce mosquito populations on their own property and community. Even if a community has a good mosquito control program, it's not going to be as effective if the homeowner has buckets and tires in their backyard and have mosquitoes emerge every morning after the county sprays the night before. So we have to encourage and teach the public that education at all levels, the youth, teens, adults, public and private organizations, it must be comprehensive, and I think it needs to be pervasive, persuasive, and persistent. We cannot let up on this because people have to hear things over and over. From a community standpoint, it's great to support community cleanup efforts, whether it's tire abatement programs or litter pickups. These things will help communities reduce their mosquito populations. And then support the county and town programs. The Georgia Department of Public Health is doing a great job. They've kind of expanded their mosquito control and surveillance efforts. So if you have questions about mosquitoes in your area and there are not mosquito control programs, reach out to your health department. They may be able to provide you some information, or contact us with the Extension Service. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes will help prevent mosquito bites. The mosquitoes are less attractive to the light colors. You show up less in the environment, you have less of a heat signature. Using EPA-approved repellents, they're proven safe and effective. DEET is still the gold standard, but there are other products that are very effective as well. So please follow the labels when you're using those. Homeowner options, tip and toss everything. My wife is on to me about eliminating buckets and things. She sees things in the yard sometimes that I don't see that need to be gotten rid of. So be diligent. Mosquito dunks are bacterial-based larvicides. They're available in most of the stores around our homes and communities and are very effective for like rain barrels, storm drains, things like this where the water is contained. Aerosol foggers and handheld foggers are effective, and they're available in the stores in their communities as well, but they only provide temporary relief. And again, it's important to follow the label instructions very carefully. You want to move away from them, spread fog downwind, things like this. You only want to do that right at dusk when the fog will stay in the area where the mosquitoes are active. Pump-up sprayers can be used to conduct residual barrier sprays to harborage areas where the mosquitoes like to hide during the heat of the day. This would be the vegetation around your deck or yard, shrubbery. English ivy on the ground cover English ivy is well known to be a preferred hiding spot for the Asian tiger mosquito in many yards. So focus on these areas. But we want to avoid pollinators. This is something that's very important. We know the importance. We've heard about some of these pollinators in the previous presentation. Do not treat flowering vegetation and only treat when necessary when mosquitoes are present. And we have some new resources available. These 3 circulars at the top. The third one there, the intersection of mosquito management and pollinator protection, has just been published in recent weeks. So that's something that we want to support. The Georgia Mosquito Control Association is a great way to get lots of information about mosquitoes, and hopefully that's going to occur on October 14th. Thank you.